Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Kareem Clemens Gaming here with Arrow's Truck Simulator Episode 3. Alright, so I was live earlier and I decided to come back live again. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you for watching. Back here with another episode with Bus Simulator. I decided to take this to another level with how we're gonna do this show. Wait, hold on. Give me 1 minute, please. Sorry about that. Wait. Alright, so, yeah, I just had to add that in. Alright, so, alright, so here I wanted to do something different. As you can see, it says, welcome to Omega Studio Bus Service Cross Country Ride. After doing the first episode, or the last episode, episode 2, I decided that I wanted to play another game and do the same as earlier. However, I'm not gonna talk. I'll let the radio talk, and I'll just pretend I'm picking up some passengers and drop them across country. All right, so you're not gonna hear my voice. You're gonna hear the radio's voice, and I only will make announcements. I will only make announcements, and hold on. Hold on, I'm having like problems here. Okay. So yeah, so alright, so again I'm just gonna like do announcements and then let the radio do everything. So I'm gonna make announcements in the beginning and I'm gonna make announcements at the end. So yeah, just get the hang of it, alright? So for now on, this is how this Arrow's Truck Simulator 2 will be. For now on, the bus. Okay, and I'll make money. I have like 3 garages with 15 people working, so I don't really need any money, and I don't have any loans. So yeah. All right, so let's get into the game, and I'm gonna try my best not to use the map thing. I'll try to use the signs. All right. Okay. So the last time we were in, we did a thing there. So all right. So I did a truck thing. So now I'm gonna go to a hotel and pick up some passengers. I played this game and I like playing this game, so I wanted to come with another episode 3. I don't really need any gas, so tried looking for some buses to download on a game, but unfortunately it seems like the buses that I tried to download, it's not WinRAR. WINRAR. Okay, so but this bus right here do very well because I have no problems with that. Alright, so let's see if we have a hotel over here. Right across the street. I think this is a hotel over here. Okay. You can't make no right turn over here. Yep, hotel. Alright, so we have some people here. This is Omega Studio Bus Service. So we're waiting for the people to come out the hotel. We have 49 people. Let's see where we're gonna go. Let's see, this is across country, so let's go. Okay, so let's take like I told you, if I can't pronounce these words, I can't pronounce these words. Upper South. Let's come over here. That's 16 hours. It seems like we have a toll here. Look crazy as hell. I wonder what that is. Alright. And by the way, the radio that plays on here is real. So, is real. Alright, so we got our passengers and we're on our way. Alright, so let me turn on the radio. Because I'm not going to be doing no talking. The radio's going to be talking. And we're going to be talking, putting out some news for our passengers. Is there any news, radio? Yeah, there we go, news. So let's cause I don't want to put any songs on and get copyrighted, even though it's in a game, but it's all good.
So Now has a weekly podcast.
So this is BBC
to MMA.
Radio.
The MMA show will feature news, interviews, and the goings-on in the fastest-growing sport in the world. You can join myself, OJ Borg, ex-fighter Dan Hardy, along with journalist Nick Pete, and a range of voices from the scene as we focus on everything that catches our eye, from the UFC to the British domestic scene.
Search 5 Live in your podcast app.
Get more from BBC 5 Live.
Alright. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Please like and subscribe. Alright. So I'm making announcements. Welcome to the Omega Studio bus service. This is 49 passengers to
When Paul
Upper
Manafort
Sala.
pitched Donald Trump for the position running his
This is a
campaign
16-hour
for the Republican
ride.
presidential nomination,
Time is 8:19
one of the
a.m.
reasons he
We'll get there
cited,
at
according to the New York
6
Times,
a.m. on
was his
Saturday.
success as a lobbyist in
There is no
diverting
bus in the
the
rear.
flight
There is
paths
no
of
bathroom in
planes
the rear of the
which
bus.
had
If
been
you need to
flying
make a
over
stop,
Mr.
please
Trump's
let the
golf
driver
resort
know.
at Mar-a-Lago in Florida.
Pit stop.
And for good measure, he also
And
reminded
we
the
will
candidate
be
that he
on
owned an
our way.
apartment in Trump
Thank
Tower.
you
He was
again
hired.
for writing
Mr. Trump secured the
Omega
Republican nomination,
Studio
and Mr. Manafort was his
service
key man at the
bus
party
service.
convention.
Remember,
But
there
within
is no
3 months,
smoking and there's no
Mr.
drinking
Manafort was let
alcohol
go
in
by a
this bus.
regretful Donald Trump, burned
It's
by a
Joe Radio
report
and
that
the
associated
Rise.
him with nearly $13
I will
million
make an announcement
off-ledger payments from the former president
when,
of Ukraine,
we get
Viktor
out
Yanukovych. The
2
White
minutes
House
in.
has distanced itself
Right.
from new arrests connected with the Trump presidential campaign. A spokeswoman said the charges against Paul Manafort and Rick Gates were unrelated to President Trump's bid last year. She also disassociated the president from one of his former foreign policy advisors, George Papadopoulos, who has pleaded guilty to lying about his links with the Kremlin. Our correspondent in Washington is Laura Bick.
Every camera, every Twitter feed was focused on Paul Manafort heading into the FBI field office, turning himself in voluntarily this morning. And as we were all glued on this, knowing and having heard all weekend that this moment was to come, we didn't know it was going to be Manafort, but Twitter was then alive, all the cameras were alive, and just as that is all going on, Donald Trump then starts tweeting, and then just as all of this seems to die down quietly, an unsealed indictment becomes available, and that relates to George Papadopoulos. Now, none of us had ever really heard of him before. He's seen in a picture with Donald Trump, and he has now admitted lying to the FBI about contacts he had with a Russian professor while serving as Trump's foreign policy advisor. Now, the White House said he was unpaid. He's a volunteer. He was part of a volunteer committee that met only once. But he did meet with this professor in London who promised they had dirt on Hillary Clinton. And as the indictment also reveals from his connections, that Russia claimed to have dirt on the Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails in a meeting in April. Remember, just a few months later, damaging emails from the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign chair John Podesta were leaked online. So this goes to the very heart of this investigation, which is trying to look to see if there was any collusion between the Trump campaign and anyone involved in the Trump campaign and the Kremlin.
Laura Bicker. Well, Seth Abramson is an attorney and a law professor at the University of New Hampshire.
We should distinguish between the different charges because the money laundering charges, for instance, do stem from actions taken between 2006 and 2015. But the making false statements allegation regarding false statements made to federal officials do stem from Mr. Manafort's time as Trump's campaign manager. And we can expect that these charges will be used to press Mr. Manafort to cooperate in the Trump-Russia collusion investigation.
When the prosecutor says making false statements, does he elaborate on that at all?
Yes, actually, this was a speaking indictment, which means that the prosecution has actually laid out the facts of the case, not all of them, but many of them, which they are not obligated to do. And as a result of that, we do have a sense of some of the false statements that Mr. Manafort made to federal officials as they were investigating this case. And again, it's important to emphasize those statements were made in the summer of 2016, when Paul Manafort was very much involved in the Trump campaign.
So what was the mechanism here by which Paul Manafort arrived at court today? I mean, how did we get from the appointment of a special prosecutor or a special counsel, Robert Mueller, to where we are now with this case?
Well, as we know, Paul Manafort has been under investigation by Bob Mueller and by the FBI for many months now. And in fact, about a month ago, Mr. Manafort was informed by agents of Bob Mueller, the special counsel, that he should expect to be indicted. So from a certain standpoint, this indictment was not entirely surprising, though Mr. Manafort did tell the media yesterday that he had no advance notice that he was the one who would be indicted today.
From the point of view of the investigation, what would you say legally are the chances of Paul Manafort actually collaborating or cooperating with the investigation in the way that we hear Mr. Papadopoulos is doing?
Well, I think as an attorney, one of the things you look at first is the age of the defendant. In this case, Mr. Manafort is 68 years old. And you also look at his maximum federal prison exposure, which in this case is 10 to 15 years, which for Mr. Manafort quite possibly would be the equivalent of a life sentence. Whenever you have a combination of an older defendant and a lengthy prison sentence, you have a real possibility of cooperation with the prosecution. So I think there are a lot of people who believe it's entirely possible that Paul Manafort was charged at this time specifically so that Bob Mueller could secure his cooperation in the investigation against those who are above him, possibly President Trump, possibly Attorney General Sessions, or Jared Kushner, or Michael Flynn.
Professor Seth Abramson. Well, let's join Taylor Griffin now, who worked under George W. Bush in the White House and now edits roughlyexplained.com. Hello, Taylor.
Hello. How are you, Rod? Welcome back to Big Picture.
Thank you very much. Yes, what a marvelous welcome. I wondered if we could look at Paul Manafort just for a minute, because there's so much to be said about his role in the world of foreign political lobbying, isn't there? I mean, it's one of these areas people get into trouble with it wherever they are. You know, there's been people getting into trouble in Britain for representing rather suspect regimes in the past, you know, because so much money was held out. Is that part of the problem here? It's just what people will do for the green stuff.
That's very true, and Paul Manafort says what he was doing was completely legitimate, but clearly the way that he was hiding money was not legitimate. At the very least, he was avoiding U.S. taxes and that kind of thing. But Rod, this is one of those examples of where it's the cover-up that gets you in trouble. A lot of what he was doing may have been legitimate, but he did not file the proper paperwork. When you represent in the U.S. a foreign country, you have to file certain paperwork, Foreign Agent Registration Act. He tried to cover it up, and then he tried to cover up the money from the drug companies and all of this sort of stuff, and dug himself deeper and deeper. And so what we have now is we have charges that are completely unrelated to the core charges related to Russia that originally Mueller was set out to investigate. But that now gives Robert Mueller leverage that he can use with Paul Manafort to compel his cooperation in the larger investigation.
And just on a sort of a simple point, why does the U.S. government care if you are lobbying for a foreign government? Would it be pretty obvious if you were doing something like that?
Well, you just have to file. You have to file as a foreign agent. It's called the Foreign Agent Registration Act. It's called FAIR. You're supposed to disclose it, and you're supposed to disclose what you do for it. And he didn't do that. But there's a lot more to this, in that he tried to hide the money that he was receiving from Ukraine. Maybe wasn't all on the up and up. And so you've got charges related to U.S. laws that prohibit you from maybe taking foreign dirty money too. And so he's got a lot of issues legally. And I'm sure your legal analyst can give you a better idea of what these are than I can.
Sure they can. Politically, I mean, he also had strong associations, didn't he, with someone who was very visible at the Republican convention last year, and that was Roger Stone.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. Roger Stone seemed to, by the way, have some advance notice. If you looked at his Twitter feeds and that kind of thing, he seemed to have some advance notice of what would be coming out on Wiki, which is what we presume was the mechanism for the Russian hacked documents from the DNC to become public. So all of that looks very suspicious, and I think Robert Mueller wants to get to the bottom of that, get deeper into it, and as the legal analyst you just had on noted, this is a man who's facing 10 to 15 years in jail, and at 68 years old, it's going to be very hard for him to say no and to protect Donald Trump at this point.
And from your, reading of social media and so on, are Americans at large as fascinated by this as we are? I mean, we seem to be...
No.
Aha.
No. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rod, but I actually was very interested in this question today. So I go on an annual fishing trip to Washington State on the Pacific coast. So I've been way down in the Olympic Peninsula, very rural area. If you've ever seen the movie Twilight, it's based in Forks, Washington. That's where I was. And I asked people while I was there, do you know what's going on? Do you care? And these are even people who oppose Donald Trump. And they're like, I have no idea what's going on. So for ordinary Americans, this is just some Washington garbage, people going back and forth with each other in Washington. They're living their lives. For people who are tuned into politics, this is extremely intense. And I think it's important for us to notice that, because if you take the Watergate crisis, right, which we all look back on historically, amazing, huge thing. Well, it was 2.5 years from when the Watergate news started to when Richard Nixon. And I think we need to put all this in perspective. We are at the beginning of something rather than at the end of it.
Taylor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rod. Good night.
Good night. Taylor Griffin, the editor at roughlyexplained.com. More than 600 refugees and asylum seekers are refusing to leave an Australian-run detention centre in Papua New Guinea, just hours before it's due to close, just about 3 hours from now. The men say they fear for their safety in the local community and are worried about their future. Last year, a court in Papua New Guinea ruled that the camp on Manus Island was unconstitutional. Well, we're joined from Sydney by Phil Mercer. Hello, Phil.
Yes, morning to you, Rod.
So, tell me a little bit more about their reasons for refusing to leave.
Well, first and foremost, these 600 men, about 480 of them have been deemed to be genuine refugees. The others are asylum seekers who've either had their refugee claims rejected or are awaiting a determination. They fear for their safety. Now, this facility on Manus Island closes at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon local time, as you say, in about 3 or 4 hours' time. Then it will be handed back to the Papua New Guinea Defence Force. It's part of a naval base on Manus Island. The inmates, the detainees, say that alternative accommodation provided for them on Manus Island won't be secure, that their safety can't be guaranteed. And they say in recent months there have been many tensions between themselves and locals on Manus Island, resulting in alleged knife and machete attacks. So that's one reason they're refusing to leave. The other one is that they are very uncertain and anxious about their futures. They don't know if they'll be able to live adequately on Manus Island, whether they'll be able to go to other countries, or whether they'll be encouraged to go home. So it's a time of great fear and great uncertainty, according to those men inside Manus Island's regional processing centre.
So they don't know where they're going to go. The Australian government hasn't given them any indication of what's going to happen to them when the camp closes its doors.
Well, they have, the Australians, set up 3 alternative accommodation units near the main town on Manus Island, and that would be, one would imagine, short-term accommodation. In the medium to longer term, the fate of these 600 men, they come from Myanmar, Afghanistan, a third are from Iran, others are from Sudan and Pakistan. They don't know where they will end up. The United States has offered to take some of the refugees on Manus Island and also from Australia's other South Pacific processing centre on Nauru. But Papua New Guinea says that the men aren't their responsibility, that Australia should resettle them. But what complicates this matter really beyond everything else, Ron, is that Australia is refusing to take even refugees from this processing centre as part of a hardline policy designed to deter asylum seekers from trying to reach Australia's shores by boat. Very briefly, since 2013, Australia has been incarcerating all asylum seekers who try to reach Australia by sea in these 2 regional processing centres on Manus Island in Papua New Guinea and the other on Nauru. The government says that it protects Australia's borders and saves lives at sea, but the United Nations and human rights groups are adamant that conditions inside the camps have for quite a long time now been, in their words, very cruel.
So is it possible then that some of these detainees are actually fearful for their own safety when they're released?
Well, that's what we're hearing from one of the Australian Greens senators who's up there on Manus Island, and he was saying that in recent weeks and months there have been a number of knife and machete attacks committed allegedly by locals on asylum seekers and refugees from the camp. Now, we've heard in the last few moments that the shutdown of the Manus Island facility is well and truly underway, that all Australian officials, Border Force officers and other contractors have left. The PNG guards have also vacated the premises, and we are hearing via Radio New Zealand pictures apparently supplied by refugees still inside the facility of locals apparently looting the centre. So those refugees are still refusing to leave just hours before the official closure of what has been a very controversial offshore camp run by Australia.
Phil, thanks so much. Adolf Hitler joined the Nazi Party, or what would become the Nazi Party, after being rejected by another political party, according to the historian. A previously unpublished document reveals that the young Hitler was shunned by the newly formed German Socialist Party in 1919, 2 years before he went on to become Nazi. 2 years before he went on to join what would become the National Socialist Party in time, of course, of which he would become the leader. Thomas Faber is Professor of History and International Affairs at the University of Aberdeen. He discovered the document while researching his new book, Becoming Hitler. I spoke to him earlier, and he told me how he came across it.
I came across this document almost by coincidence. I was already pretty much done with my book when I was still looking about what other documents I might find, and I decided that I would look at what kind of early testimony of members of the early Nazi Party and people close to them I would find at the Institute for Contemporary History in Munich. And then I suddenly found the document by surprise.
So this was what? I mean, was it like an application from a young Adolf Hitler to join a party?
No, the testimony of the person who turned him down in 1961. In 1961, the person who turned him down, a man called Otto Gassinger, met up with people from the Institute of Contemporary History and gave testimony as to the early history of Adolf Hitler. And it is there that he told the story of how Adolf Hitler one day appeared in his office and said that he would very much like to work for the newspaper and join their party, and also that he was short of money, and but that he turned Adolf Hitler down.
And did it say why?
No, he didn't say. He didn't really go into detail the document as to why he took that out.
What was the character of the German Socialist Party as opposed to the National Socialist Party that Hitler went on to join?
The German Socialist Party and the German Workers' Party, which is the predecessor of the Nazi Party, did not stand a world apart. They were both small right-wing parties in Munich. The main difference of the two parties at the time was that the German Socialist Party, the party that turned Hitler down, was a far more significant group. I mean, the German Workers' Party, so the Nazi Party, really just consisted of a few dozen people at the time. So ideologically, they were somewhat similar parties, but I think the real significance is not that their political goals of these two early parties were very different, but the real significance is that had Hitler been accepted into that party, he would have been unlikely to rise to the top and would have had very much a minor position in the party.
It's amazing thought. Do you speculate as to why they would have said, well, you can't join? I mean, surely it's in the interest of a political party to have as many members as possible. So.
I think that is absolutely true, but I think the point here was less simply joining as a rank and file member, but the point I think was that Hitler really wanted to work for them and wanted to write for their party newspaper. So I think the point was that they didn't want someone who they may have seen may be rocking the boat or maybe too outspoken and would actually not follow the party line.
And would he then have become more embittered? Would he have become, do you think, a more extremist political operator by virtue of this?
Well, he certainly became embittered. I'm not sure whether he became more radical. Hitler would have been pretty radical either way, but it is certainly true that Hitler held a grudge against anyone who had ever crossed his path and had resisted him. He would not necessarily outright target them, but he would hold a grudge against them for the rest of his life. People who generally would later support him. And I think it is maybe also here that the real significance of the story lies, because what happened subsequently was after Hitler had joined the Nazi Party, when the Nazi Party was still very much a small party, and that then subsequently in 1920, 1921, on a total of 3 occasions, a merger between the Nazi Party and the German Socialist Party was proposed. And in all 3 cases, the majority of the Nazi Party leadership was in favor of it. Because they said, well, look, we're a small party and we don't have critical mass. It would be much better off if we joined forces with the German Socialist Party. And the only reason why this didn't happen is because Hitler that partly refused for this to happen, even threatening on one occasion resigning from the party in order to show how important he had become for the Nazi Party at that point. So it was really down to Hitler that that merger did not go ahead, and that is historically highly significant, because had the merger happened, the Nazi Party, as the very much junior party, would have been a junior partner in this merger and would have simply been absorbed into the much bigger German Socialist Party. In which case, the people who had rejected Hitler in the first place would have been in the driver's seat of that merger. In which case, there would have been no way that Hitler could have dominated the party, and this would have still been a right-wing party. It would have still been an unpleasant party, but it would also have been a party that would have been very much unlikely to exploit the open
opening that would have existed, of course, anyway for a right-wing party in Germany, Weimar Germany, if all other conditions had been the same. And more likely than not, the void would have been filled by a different kind of right-wing party, and quite possibly with one that, for instance, would have been closer to maybe Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, which would have not been a pleasant state, but would not have been the kind of party that would bring genocide and the world war to the world.
Professor Thomas Weber on one of these what-ifs of history, rather a big one. It's 4:30.
More live Premier League football than anyone else. This is BBC 5 Live.
The news comes from Rachel Black.
The Bank of England is preparing for tens of thousands of city job losses if no post-Brexit trade deal is agreed with the EU. The bank believes a reduction of 75,000 posts is a reasonable scenario over 3 to 5 years, with some being lost to cities like Frankfurt and Paris. The government has given political parties in Northern Ireland another day to resolve the 10-month deadlock over power sharing. Northern Ireland Secretary James Brokenshire says the Democratic Unionists and Sinn Féin have made progress. Facebook says 126 million Americans may have seen posts uploaded to fake accounts with links to Russia around the time of last year's presidential election. The details are part of the social media firm's submission to a Senate hearing into alleged Russian interference. And asylum seekers wanting to reach Australia have barricaded themselves inside a detention centre in Papua New Guinea. They want to prevent the site from being closed as they fear being attacked by local people if they move to other sites nearby. Sport now, here's Shojo.
Well, the beautiful game didn't quite live up to its nickname at Turf Moor, but it did serve up a 1-0 win for Burnley against Newcastle.
Here is Gudmundsson, good ball, Korg, shoot, save, really good save, back into the mix once again, must be! Hendrick scores! Burnley break the deadlock! Terrible game to watch, but try telling that to the Burnley fans now!
Well, of course, they won't care. That Jeff Hendricks winner takes Burnley up to 7th in the Premier League. Manager Sean Dyche is not looking at the table, though.
To look at it, people tell you often enough it's a nice-looking league table, but like I say, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So we've made a good start.
Dyche has been linked to managerial vacancies at other clubs in recent weeks. The Burnley chairman, Mike Garlick, says he's not worried about losing him.
That's the price of success, I guess. You know, the more success we get, the more people are going to look at him. But we look after him well, and we'd hope he's going to be here for a long time. You know, there's one person on our list, and that's another 5 years, hopefully.
Lee Clark has left the manager's job at Bury with immediate effect. They're currently second bottom in League One. Clark had been in charge for the last 8 months. Warrington's second-row Ben Curry will come into the England 13 for their next match against Lebanon at the Rugby League World Cup on Saturday. He comes in for Sam Burgess, who's sidelined for up to 4 weeks with a medial knee ligament injury. In rugby union, Elliot Daly is set to miss the start of England's autumn series. He's being replaced by Bath's Semesa Rokoduguni. Chris Jones reports.
Daly's club Wasps say he'll be out for up to 3 weeks with a knee injury, so not a disaster in one sense, but very bad timing ahead of those autumn internationals. England face Argentina in under a fortnight, so Daly will certainly miss that one, and then he's touch and go now for the rest of the autumn series, depending on his recovery. It does mean a deserved recall for Rokoduguni. He is featured sparingly under Eddie Jones, but 7 tries in 7 Premiership matches, too good for the England head coach to ignore, and he's on his way to Portugal to meet up with the England squad. But while Daly's recovery is being measured in a matter of weeks, it's worse news for teammate Matt Mullen. The prop will be out until the new year with a tricep injury that as of yet hasn't been replaced in that England party.
The former World Snooker champion Stuart Bingham has decided not to appeal against his 6-month ban for breaching the sports betting rules. The ban was suspended for 3 months and a day, which means he'll return to the game after the Masters next year. Bingham says he's truly sorry for what he's done. He also categorically denies placing bets on any matches he was playing in. And Tiger Woods will make his competitive return to golf after 9 months out with injury at the Hero World Challenge in 4 weeks' time.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
Good morning. Well, for many of us, today is going to be a milder day, but the price you pay for it being milder is it's also going to be cloudier. There'll also be some rain around across northwest areas of the UK today. So let's start off with a weather picture across England and Wales, where quite a chilly start to the day across southern counties of England. That's where we've had the clearest weather overnight. Temperatures in the coldest spots down to about 2 degrees first thing. Otherwise, a lot of cloud around, and that cloud's going to be thick enough to bring some damp weather at times across North Wales, northwest England, and a few showers potentially to start the day as well across eastern areas of England, although these will move out of the way pretty quickly. What we'll be left with then through the rest of the day is some dry and bright weather, probably the best of this across South Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia, and across much of southern England, where we'll see some sunny spells coming and going. Temperatures reaching around 13 or 14 degrees for these areas, but further north, well, I think we could well see the clouds thicken up across Wales for a time during the afternoon to provide a spell of rain, and that rain may well end up working into northwest England as we head towards the evening time, so turning quite damp at times here. Temperatures around 13 or 14 degrees.
Okay,
well,
ladies
so
and gentlemen, we are
in Northern Ireland,
about to make a pit stop.
And here it's going to be quite a breezy day, a brisk southwesterly
we will be
wind.
stopping at the next gas station.
14 degrees at top temperature, but at times that cloud will be thick enough to give us
there
a few
for
occasional bursts of rain. Now the picture in Scotland. Well, this is where the wettest weather is going to be today.
And,
we've got the weather fronts with us across western Scotland, and particularly in the hills. There'll be some fairly heavy rain at times today. The weather front going nowhere fast, so the rain will be fairly persistent. Eastern Scotland, meanwhile, the rain a bit more patchy in nature, and it will probably try to brighten up at least for a time as we head
we have 8 hours.
Temperatures though not doing too badly. We're looking highs of around 12 to 13 degrees. And heading into Wednesday, rather dry and bright weather for England and Wales, while cloudy for Northern Ireland and Scotland, with a threat of further outbreaks of rain. Chris Fawkes, 5 Live Weather.
Thank you. Mexico Grand Prix.
Only once this season has he finished outside of the top 5. Now make that twice for the 9th place finish. But it doesn't matter because Lewis Hamilton is a 4-time Formula 1 world champion. And 9th place in a dramatic Mexico City finale makes him the most successful British Formula 1 driver of all time.
I said big thanks to everyone in this team. What you've done the past couple of years is just remarkable, and I'm just so grateful for all your hard work this year. God bless you.
That's it, the 2017 title wraps up. Download the J5 podcast now.
5 Live is digital. Get the app, search for 5 Live podcasts, and listen on digital radio.
The sitting president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, has been re-elected. Mr. Kenyatta won 98% of the vote in last week's election rerun. Turnout, however, just under 39%, less than half of that recorded in the vote in August, which was then nullified. The opposition leader, Raila Odinga, pulled out the poll and called on supporters to boycott the vote, which is apparently quite successful. At the end of his speech, after the result was announced, President Kenyatta called on Kenyans to put their differences behind them.
My last appeal is the appeal I have consistently made to all Kenyans. Your neighbor will remain your neighbor despite the political outcomes. Your neighbor will be your brother, your neighbor will be your sister. That each and every one of us be our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. Let us maintain peace. And with that I say, God bless Kenya and God bless our resilience. Asanteni sana wenzangu. Asanteni.
Michael Kaloki joins us now from Nairobi. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Rod. Good morning.
Morning. What's the reaction been then since the election result was actually announced?
Well, there has been mixed reaction to the announcement by the Electoral Commission that President Uhuru Kenyatta has won the rerun of the election. I mean, if you look at today's dailies, for example, if I look at today's edition of the Daily Nation here, the headline reads, Uhuru Kenyatta re-elected in repeat poll. Attention now turns to Raila Odinga's next move. And the paper here is referring to Raila Odinga, the opposition leader, who is expected to make an announcement this morning. And and I should note that all eyes are basically waiting to see what he will say. As you noted, Raila Odinga had boycotted these elections, and he had urged his supporters to boycott the elections as well and not to go out and vote. So attention now turns to Raila Odinga's next move. If you look at, for example, here the front page of another daily, the Standard newspaper, it has a line at the top which reads, "Why all eyes are on Raila today." So I think at the moment people are waiting to see what Raila Odinga will say when he makes his announcement later on today. Now, in his speech after being declared the president-elect, Mr. Kenyatta did hint to the fact that he was expecting the opposition now to mount a legal challenge, but I think that is a wait-and-see situation, and I think we will realize whether that will happen when Mr. Odinga addresses the nation today.
Now, why was the August election result set aside?
Well, Rod, as you might remember, earlier in September, the country's Supreme Court annulled the presidential elections that had been held early in August. After the elections, the country's electoral commission had declared President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was seeking a second term, as the winner of the polls. But the Supreme Court later declared the election null and void and ordered a rerun of the elections, with the head of the judges of the Supreme Court, his name is David Maraga, he's the Chief Justice. He declared the elections null and void, saying that the election had not been conducted in accordance with the Constitution. So the Supreme Court requested, or ordered, I should say, the Electoral Commission to have a rerun of the polls, and they set a date for October 26, which Raila Odinga then went ahead and boycotted.
Yeah, now why did he do that?
Well, he said that he had been expecting
if you need to use the restroom, please use the restroom.
To undertake reforms, and these reforms had not taken place. So he said that he would wait for these reforms to take place and called for the elections to be held at a later date. However, the Electoral Commission went ahead and held the polls on October 26th. And when they announced that they would go ahead with these polls, Mr. Raila Odinga said he would not take part in it.
And just going back over the last few days, what was the atmosphere like after the polling? I mean, were people anxious?
Well, I should say there have been violent clashes after the polls between opposition supporters and police in parts of Nairobi and Western Kenya. Generally, Rod, there has been concern expressed by many about the political uncertainty that has been witnessed in the recent past. We have seen members of the clergy also raise concern about the situation and called for the political leaders not to let things get out of hand. The memories of what happened during the post-election violence witnessed here in the country after the 2007 elections, in which over 1,300 people died and hundreds of thousands were left displaced, is still in the minds of Kenyans.
2 a.m.
Must be, of course. So, on the one hand, Mr. Odinga could announce that he's challenging the election result. But if he does, what happens?
Well, if he does challenge the election results at the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court might decide to go ahead and hear his case. Then if they decide to hear his case, depending on the ruling, then we will see that will determine what will happen next. If they rule in his favor, if he challenges these results and he perhaps says that for some reason or the other he thinks that the results are not legal, basically the court then has the option also of deciding that the country should go into another election. Now, if that is the case, then it might be some time before we go to another election, a number of months perhaps. But if no one files a case at the Supreme Court against Mr. Kenyatta's win, then he is expected to be sworn in for a second term later this month.
And
So we have 6
has
hours.
he
I'll come
formed
on here
a
about
cabinet
20
in this
minutes.
government sort of waiting to go?
Well, at the moment, there has been actually a legal debate going on about this, about the powers that Mr. Kenyatta has had after the last elections were annulled, with some saying that he has temporary powers, basically they call it the temporary incumbency, whereby part of the powers he has apparently, part of the powers he doesn't have apparently is to appoint or basically sack members of the cabinet. So at the moment, since the last elections were held, we have seen the same cabinet members, the secretaries, the cabinet secretaries, basically remaining in their positions. Now, if this case is say Raila Odinga files a case against Mr. Kenyatta's win and the Supreme Court sides in his favor, and we go for another rerun, then basically we might see perhaps Mr. Kenyatta just maintaining the same cabinet, and we might, there have been some analysts who say actually if then Mr. Kenyatta is sworn in, we might see reshuffle taking place among some of his cabinet.
Some uncertainty at the moment. But Michael, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Rod.
Well, in the Financial Times, they are leading on the big American political story of the day, as I've been hearing from Fred Studham.
This is the big story that's come out of America Monday, which is the indictment of former campaign aide to Donald Trump. And it's coming as part of the broader inquiry into the link between the Trump campaign to Russia, conducted by Robert Mueller, the former head of the FBI. And these are the first charges that have come out of Mueller's investigation into the Russian link. So there's keen anticipation, lots of speculation. It has to be said, I mean, that the charges that were issued on Monday against Paul Manafort, who headed the Trump campaign briefly over the summer last year, 2016, and advisors and aides, advisors to the campaign and an aide to Mr. Manafort. Some of these relate actually to events that predated the campaign, and that's obviously enabled the White House to respond and basically say, okay, fine, but this has got absolutely nothing to do with the election. However, no one believes for a moment that things will stop here, and there's a sense of, is there more to come, but also where does this, what's the next step, and how close does it get to the White House?
Philip Hammond has 3 weeks left. Until what?
Budget. We're on the new system now. We used to, if you remember, have budgets in the spring and then a sort of autumnal event that went under lots of different names, pre-budget report, autumn statement and so on. Now, one of his acts was to unite those two into a single event, which is going to happen, as you said, in 3 weeks' time. And again, lots of speculation about possibly so-called big and bold initiatives that address a lot of urgent voter needs, concerns, such as in the areas of housing and other things like skills initiatives that win back favour or win some favour among younger voters. And Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, basically had to warn his cabinet colleagues that he's got fiscal rules about increasing public spending, and he's not prepared to break them. He's obviously facing a lot of pressure to loosen austerity, but according to his allies, he's had to say, I've got no room for manoeuvre. And he said one thing that's important is basically that investors who are already worried by Brexit and uncertainty that may bring would actually think if the government starts to tear up all the sort of framework that it's put in place, some elements which have only been there for about a year in the pursuit of sort of quick, sort of eye-catching wins with voters. Now, that's not going to go down well with some of his cabinet colleagues. We've had a whole series of them who've been sort of trailing possible initiatives, most notably Sajid Javid, the community secretary, who's talked about deploying an extra 50 billion of borrowing for housing. Well, will that pass through the will that pass the muster of the Chancellor? We don't know. There's also other demands on the Chancellor in terms of how is he going to find the extra money that has been essentially promised or pledged
that was my fault.
The deal that the Prime Minister had
I messed that up.
the Democratic Unionist Party.
I'm trying to do camera views and look what's happening. Crashing.
Flow towards Northern Ireland. There's also the cost of abandoning a plan to raise national insurance rates for the self-employed, which the Chancellor had hoped to introduce. He had to back down in the wake of a lot of public pressure on that. So, as ever, you have a Chancellor under lots of pressure. Everyone wants a slice of the action.
All right, so 4 hours into the trip.
Sort of measure expectations.
Sorry about that, passengers.
Now, the Spanish government is getting ever tougher by the day, really. It seems with Catalonia, people in Catalonia who disagree, which would be a polite way of putting it with them. What are they doing now, or what are they threatening people with?
Well, I mean, what we're now seeing is basically these dramatic events unfolded at the end of last week. Declaration of independence by Catalonia, response by Madrid, not just in triggering the necessary constitutional article that has allowed it to reassert sort of central authority control on Catalonia, but also surprising, and some people say deliberately, sort of wrong-footing Catalan pro-independence Catalan leaders by calling early elections. Now what we're seeing is, as you've said, this sort of practical application of central authority and sort of moving in, but also, as you mentioned, the threats that have gone with it, which is talk of, charges that will be brought against senior pro-independence politicians, the reminder of what, if they are found guilty, what type of sentences they might face, which are quite considerable. And this has all happened against the backdrop of where, most notably, Carles Puigdemont, the deposed Catalan leader, went to Brussels on Monday, and this has sort of sparked the sort of speculation of, is he going to...
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a malfunction with the bus. We might have to make a stop at one of the mechanics. I'm going to see if we can push it to...
how practical is that, that he might... essentially one sovereign European country may grant authority to someone coming from another EU member state.
I'm going to see if we can go to Arborough.
It does, yes, as you say. While we're here, Gideon Rachman is talking about this, your foreign affairs commentator.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it sort of then within that broader European context, which we just touched upon, and basically saying,
I think that's Arborough.
The European Union, in Gideon Rachman's view, is basically politically and intellectually quite unprepared for a crisis.
It just brought us a
like the one that we're seeing in Spain, and wondering whether it is actually capable of dealing with it. And one thing that he points out is that Spain was, if you like, supposed to sort of stand out, one of the standout examples
by this will receive a $30
work that it's best. This is a country that has been through
the cross country
dictatorship, came
here
out of
with
that
the Omega Studio bus service.
Within sort of decades had managed to join the EU and was set on a path towards sort of democracy, open market economy integration within the EU system. So it was all sort of very much a good news story, and that it should happen that from a country like that you get a challenge that really is very difficult for the EU to deal with in terms of just the formality, legal aspects, how you approach a breakaway region of one of your member states. This is sort of uncharted territory.
And we're at it again. Apparently, we've been spending money.
Yes, latest figures from the Bank of England show that we're borrowing more on our credit cards again. We're borrowing accelerated. the figures that we've got for September.
Again, for those who felt affected by this crash, you are entitled to a $30 credit here with the Omega Studio Bus Service, anywhere across country.
This has sort of got people pondering, economists pondering
ETA 11:44, 2 hours until our destination.
Is actually still quite robust and confident. There had been speculation that that was not the case that we saw earlier ahead of these figures. The downward trajectory for consumer spending. It has ever sort of prompted, so while that's the sort of good news, if you like, then there's always the sort of concern about whether we are, as you said, at it again, of relying a bit too much on the borrowing and the never-never, as they used to call it, and that in itself can be a dangerous enterprise.
Fred Studeman at the Financial Times. Well, ever since Father Christmas debuted in a Coca-Cola advert in 1931 as a jovial, red-suited, very plump figure, Coca-Cola has had some sort of association with Christmas, which it's exploited in recent years with a truck which is sent to various British cities to hand out small cans of free pop. But not everybody's so happy. Councillor Richard Kemp leads the Liberal Democrats on Liverpool City Council, and he says the truck should be banned from Liverpool this Christmas. Says the city is in the grip of an obesity epidemic, and so the tradition should stop. And what's he about here? Is he, as some would have it, the Grinch who is poised to steal Christmas, or has he got legitimate concerns? We reached Councillor Kemp earlier tonight on a visit to Morocco.
I don't think it is a festive event, is it? It's an event that takes place at Christmas, but it's not about wishing anyone goodwill and Merry Christmas. It's about selling their product. Coca-Cola is the largest seller of fizzy, sugary drinks in the entire world. And we know that sugary, fizzy drinks are a major cause of child obesity. And that's an epidemic that's taking place globally. In the UK, 30% of all our young children at the age of 11 are obese. 5% of them are clinically obese. They're way behind the United States of America. But this is a trend that's happening globally. What I'm trying to do is to make sure there's a proper debate about these issues, because I see no sign that this epidemic is abating.
Do you see an opportunity here, in fact, to put some local bylaw on the books more generally against sugary drinks, or doing something like the Mayor of New York attempted to do once, when he tried to stop people having very big cups of fizzy drink?
Well, we don't have in the UK the power to do that, and I don't want to ban fizzy drinks. It's a bit like alcohol. I like a beer. I'm going to have one in a minute. It's a question of doing the right amount. So, in my household, when my children were young and now my grandchildren, we have a bottle of pop a week, and there's no problem in that. So what we want is sensible regulations about advertising and promotion, just like there is now for tobacco, just like there is for alcohol, so that parents can resist the pester power of something that really is not good for children.
But isn't this just a one-off event? I mean, this truck handing out free little cans of Coke. I mean, you're hardly going to get fat off 150 millilitres of Coke, are you?
You're not indeed, but of course Coke is all-pervading. Look at the Olympics, look at the Commonwealth Games, look at sport festivals, look at a whole range of things. So it isn't one particular activity, it's a whole range of activities. But particularly at Christmas, I think it's bad. We should be wishing everyone a merry but healthy Christmas. They're coming along in the UK claiming that there is a long tradition of going around with this ban. this is the 6th year that they've done it. There is no long tradition at all. This is all about people giving free marketing to Coca-Cola because their van has arrived and you can officially start Christmas. This is quite a cynical exercise on behalf of Coca-Cola to tune into something which should be more important than just making money.
Councillor Richard Kemp, the leader of Liverpool's Liberal Democrats. Thank you for being with us tonight. The sun rises in Liverpool this morning at 9 minutes past 7.
First for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5 Live.
Good morning, it's 5 o'clock. This is Morning Reports on 5 Live. I'm Rachel Bland, and our top story this morning. The government's due to publish proposals on restricting the amount people can stake on fixed odds betting terminals in one go. At the moment, £100 can bet every 20 seconds. It's expected the review will suggest
we have
3
minutes.
ranging
Please
from
take the
£2
time
to
to
£50.
look around you and any
Reports will also
trash
look at advertising.
that you may have.
This man lost
Please
£5,000
put it
over
in
2
a trash
days playing on the
bag.
machines.
Please check along to see if there are any
compared to any other form of gambling is absolutely ridiculous. Even if you go into a casino, you're still talking a couple of minutes between each spin on roulette.
anything of your belongings.
Completely automated. It is a case of seconds that you can lose. You see people that lose thousands of pounds from these games. You're thinking, why are they doing it? And as soon as you try it yourself, you realise you lose all sense of time around you.
Just remain seated until we come to a halt at the destination.
Everything that's going on until you finish.
The Bank of England is preparing for tens of thousands of city job losses as a result of Brexit. It believes that will happen if a trade deal isn't agreed with the EU. The bank says 75,000 job losses is a reasonable scenario over 3 to 5 years, with some being lost to cities like Frankfurt and Paris. The Trump administration has dismissed as inconsequential the arrest of the president's former campaign manager and a guilty plea by one of his former advisors. Paul Manafort has been charged with money laundering and has pleaded not guilty. George Papadopoulos, however, has admitted lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russia. Facebook says as many as 126 million American users may have seen content uploaded by Russia-based operatives over the last 2 years. The social network says about 80,000 posts were produced before and after the 2016 presidential election. Dave Lee is the BBC's technology reporter.
When the lawyers of these top tech companies, Facebook, Google and Twitter, appear in front of several Senate panels this week, we expect them to try and downplay the impact of Russian-backed propaganda on their networks. They'll say it was just a drop in the ocean compared to the millions of messages posted on these networks every single day. In the run-up to these hearings, all of the companies have suggested they could tackle the problem themselves by enforcing new, stricter policies around advertising and content. But the way...
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived to our destination. Again, please pick up all your trash around you. Please check for any belongings that you may have and not leave on the bus. This bus is returning back to the yard. Back to the yard. Okay, this bus is returning back to the yard. We have arrived in Upper Scout. So, destination. Please pick up your trash. Alright, thank you again for riding with Omega Studio buses. Thank you so much. I'm your driver, Kareem. Just wait until the bus comes to a halt before you can stand up and move a part of the bus. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the stop here in Upshall. Please remember to take all your belongings. Don't leave anything behind. This bus will be returning back to the yard. If you leave anything beyond, please contact the Omega Studio bus service, and we will contact this bus number is 911. Bus number 911. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to ride with us from our destination in Bergen all the way at Upscale. Again, I'm your driver, Kareem Cream. Again, this bus is going to the yard. This bus is going to the yard. Please take all your belongings. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Alright. So, thank you everybody for taking the time to watch me here on this stream, episode 3. I'm so excited for those who are here in the building. Let's do a quick ride to, let's see, we left from Bergen. So, I'll show you guys the others. What about other? Oh, we left something on the bus. We left something on the bus. Okay. Alright, passenger left something on the bus. Alright. Have a nice day, man. Thanks for choosing Omega Studio bus service. I should have seen a church over here. Wow, all the passengers are gone, man. Wasn't that news boring, man? Like, oh shit, what the hell? Yeah, you see that. Alright, that news was boring, man. It was like explaining in the US was going through its crisis with this indictment on Trump's administration. Man, I'm not going to comment on that because it's just very sad. Okay, so let's go to our quick travel to our company. Let's see, company. I came from Bergen, so garage. Alright, this is one of our garages. Alright, here we go. Same girl. It looks like, yeah. What's in here? Home for the day. Did our garage close? A door? Alright, so we're gonna leave it here. Again, thank you so much for taking this time out to watch the stream, and I will see you on the next episode, which is episode 4, and we should have some. I'm gonna see if I can try to get a new bus. Thanks those who watched in the chat room. Thanks for our moderator. Again, this is episode 3. If you haven't already, please follow here, subscribe, like, share, Twitter, all the social media networks as well. For more information, you can visit this video and other videos of the Kareem Clemens YouTube Gaming on www.kareemclemens.com. Well, kareemclemens.wixsite.com/Omega Studio News. That website will be in the destination of this video. Thank you so much. You guys have a good one. Holla.